Bello Tocas, this is Isaac here, and welcome back to Isaac Reviews 2022. If there's one animation studio that stands out from the crowd in terms of how much vitriolic hate they receive, it would have to be Illumination, with people such as I Hate Everything, Ralph the Movie Maker, 24 Frames of Nick, and Turkey Tom practically eviscerating them in whatever videos they'd make talking about them. Do I feel the same about this so-called scourge of animation, though? Well, yes, but actually no. Don't get me wrong, they've made some awful movies in the past, such as the first Minions movie, Hop, and the 2018 Grinch, and they're also quite a lazy studio that uses the same animation style in almost all of their movies, even to the point of recycling some assets, but most of their movies are simply just kinda mediocre, with the only standouts being the first two Despicable Me movies. I could definitely see Warner Animation Group fitting the sort of position Illumination has due to the amount of terrible movies they've been pumping out recently, and I would have also had DreamWorks as another contender if it wasn't for the fact that they released The Bad Guys earlier this year, but that's just my personal opinion. Anyways, today's review is of Illumination's most recent film, Minions: The Rise of Gru, a sequel to what I consider to be the company's worst film to date. If you're wondering why, well, simply put, it's fucking lazy. I mean, the concept alone of giving a comic relief their own movie has only worked once as far as I can remember, and all the other attempts usually end up failing miserably. Such was the case with Minions, where there was barely anything interesting to be found outside of an admittedly cool concept of a normal-looking family of criminals, which definitely would have made for a better movie. But instead, we have a movie about these yellow butt plugs who speak gibberish just doing random shit for 80 minutes on end, and yet it was somehow able to become the highest grossing non-Disney animated film in history. And Minions is more or less the perfect summarization of Illumination as a company. Profitable laziness. Their mediocrity is able to make tons of money at the box office, sometimes more than movies with actual heart and soul behind them, which is just sad when you think about it. As a result, I definitely didn't have very high expectations for The Rise of Gru going in. I mean, I was sure it'd be better than its predecessor, and the concept of a Gru origin story does sound solid on paper, but still, it being a sequel to the awful first film was quite the turnoff. Anyways, something interesting to note about The Rise of Gru is that we had to wait quite a long time for it. Originally, it was gonna come out in 2020, but a certain thing happened that year. A thing that ended up possibly being the biggest news story of the decade, and a thing that was a catalyst for a lot of people bullying me during my freshman year of high school simply because I had a cold in December, with that bullying going on way beyond that point simply because my bullies liked getting me mad. Oh, whoopsie, it looks like I got a little off track there, so I might talk about that sort of stuff in another video. But anyways, because of that certain thing in 2020 that made the entire world shut down, Universal delayed The Rise of Gru by about a year, most likely because the film would be more profitable in the summer. But then it was delayed a second time, and for another year no less. So it seemed like Universal really cared about having this, as Sony Pictures would put it, exclusively in movie theaters. But in all seriousness, it's funny to see how Illumination cares more about the movie theater experience than two of the biggest and most critically successful animation studios to date. So, yeah, anyways, this opening's been going on for way too long now, so was the 2-year wait worth it in the end? Honestly, no, not really. I mean, sure, it's better than the first Minions movie, but it is still pretty bad. I will start off by saying that one of the only redeeming aspects of the film would have to be the animation. I mean, sure, it still retains the same look as basically all of Illumination's other films with the exception of Hop, but it is very fluid and it can be genuinely creative at times, especially with the character designs for the Vicious Six and the climax towards the end. There are some other minor things I enjoyed here, but I'll bring them up while talking about the flaws. By the way, I may be going into spoiler territory with some of this stuff, so do be warned. With that said, this movie's biggest problem has to be the writing. I don't know what it is about Illumination, but nowadays they seem to really enjoy juggling 3 or more plots together in ways that barely end up connecting well in the end. I mean, sure, that was mainly a problem with Pets 2, as Sing 2's story was a lot more coherent, but that problem definitely applies to The Rise of Gru. I mean, there's 4 major plots here, and given the film's relatively short 80-minute runtime, there's barely enough development given to these plots or the characters. I mean, sure, the minions are already blank slates of characters as it is, but as cool as the Vicious Six's designs are, the only one that serves an actual purpose to the story is the leader, Bell Bottom. I'm not exaggerating when I say that you can cut the other 5 out and basically nothing would change. The only 2 characters that are even given the slightest bit of an interesting arc outside of that are Gru and his idol Wild Knuckles, who I will admit had some pretty wholesome scenes together, but that's pretty much it. But going back on the writing, for how long this review is already going because of how much I keep going off track, like right now for instance, there's not a whole lot for me to talk about because of how boring it is. Even the humor, despite having a few okay jokes, is mostly just the 4 main minions screaming and doing stupid shit, which gets old really quick. In addition, as I mentioned, there's way too much stuff going on for me to follow, and the way all the subplots are tied together in the end is pretty underwhelming. Really, I wish I could say more about The Rise of Gru, but at the end of the day, it's nothing special in spite of the memes it spawned on places like TikTok. Even with some great animation and a few enjoyable scenes, the rest is a poorly written and forgettable experience from the opening logos to the end credits. And yes, I am aware that this is just a kids film and I should cut it some slack, but kids deserve much better than the garbage studios keep throwing at them nowadays. And unsurprisingly enough, this is yet another addition to the increasing amount of those sort of movies like the Trolls duology, Scoob, and Paw Patrol the movie. I'm sure people will end up seeing this anyway, which is fine I guess. But if we want people to take animation more seriously, we should put more of our focus on the movies that remind us of how great an art form animation truly is instead of crap like this. I don't know what else there is for me to say, so let's just get the rating over with. Next time on Isaac Reviews 2022, I'll be talking about Thor: Love and Thunder. I'll admit that I'm holding out hope that it can be good, but the critical reception is somewhat disappointing for MCU standards, and female Thor does seem a bit SJW-y, but hopefully I'll still be able to find some sort of enjoyment out of it. Anyways, thanks for watching this episode of Isaac Reviews 2022. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!